Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, July 13th, 2020. This month almost half over already. It feels like it just began. I'm your host, Tristan Johnson, the person who creates Step Back History videos, which, I am beginning the first draft of writing right now. So look forward to some action coming on July 31st. But I just want to get a few things out of the way before we get our esteemed, wonderful co-host in here. Yes, my name is Tristan Johnson, Step Back History. If you were watching on YouTube, you already know. I stream 3 times a week on Mondays, which is what you're watching right now, from 12 to 2 Eastern Time. We have the Monday Discourse, which is a show I do with Mia Mulder, who will be on here in just a moment. On Tuesdays, I do from 7 to 10 Step Back Tonight, which is my version of an evening show, a night show, whatever you want to call it. For Europeans, it's a late night show. And then on Fridays, from 2 to 5, I do a show called The Reactor, in which I comb through content that you have sent me, and I sort of make... We talk about stuff. We talk about the things that are in the videos and the memes and everything, and react and have fun. Good times. I go by he, him pronouns. My work can be found at stepbackhistory.com. If you're watching this on Twitch and you have Amazon Prime, keep in mind that you have 1 free Twitch subscription every month that if you do not use to support an independent creator on Twitch, will just go right back into Jeff Bezos's children fund, which he uses to buy children to feed to his piranhas. So if you don't take that money away from him, he's going to buy more children. He's going to feed more children to piranhas. And you don't want children to get fed to piranhas, do you? So please support an independent creator. And if you choose to help Step Back History, you'll be doing me quite a favor. Cats need to be fed, rent needs to be paid, all that stuff. My latest video, which came out at the end of June, is entitled I Ruin Apartheid by Making It Political, which is a fun watch, and if you haven't seen it, I would suggest, hey, thank you, Poison Gem, for subscribing. Much appreciated. Did you have a statement to go along with that? I don't see, but thank you. Much appreciated. You are a true mensch. And where's my document? There we go. And my next video, which is going to, I think I've said it a few times now, it's going to be a brief history of Puerto Rico. I've already read some stuff on it. It's my last video before I do a bit of a change in my research process that I'm pretty excited about. But thank you for including mine and my fiance's band according to... Oh, yes! I remember that. Yeah, in the Confederate States of America, Poison Jam did the... you did a version of of intentionally bad accordion playing of Dixie. Of Dixie for my Confederate States of America video. Yes, I now remember you. I knew that name Poison Jam sound familiar, so I was like, oh, who is that? It's the tip of my tongue. Yes, and thank you, Air Maggie, for following up, for following the thingy, following the channel. Welcome to the Orkin gang. And yeah, I now have a combined chat, so hopefully this will be a little bit less confusing than it was last time. All right, we need to get Ms. Mulder on the phone. Oh.
Hello?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, we got it in one. No problem.
Got it. PDF has been rotated.
Yeah. You just came over and there was no problems.
That's great. Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I'm Mia Mulder.
Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
I am Mia Mulder. I do Mia Mulder content on miamulder.youtube.com/c/Mia Mulder. No, I am a leftist YouTuber, historian, person. I don't know. I'm a content creator on the internet.
Everyone's just writing Mia Mulder in chat, so they know
Mia
if these
Mulder.
people follow your Twitter.
That's just how. That's my brand now. I don't know why.
What percentage
Mia
of your
Mulder.
tweets is just you tweeting your name?
I mean, probably more than I think. Like a significant percentage. Like
There you go.
it's up there.
Mia Mulder send tweet. There we go. Yeah, you've what's it called? You are a star of what's that website called? Nebula. You're a Nebula star.
Yeah, it's true.
Nebula.
That's a witty.
Sorry.
That's a witty. A star in a nebula.
Yeah. I what's it called? I came across. I was looking over like my long-term things to do because I have lots of things. I'm like, oh, I've been sitting on this for a long time, and one of them is this Google form for signing up for Nebula. So at some point, I'll pitch them something.
At some point.
What's it called? I got to work it out because I have way too many friends who are in the standard family that I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, there's a lot of us in standard now. I don't really know why so many just gravitated there.
I don't know.
I just got lucky by a suggestion from Philosophy Tube.
Yeah, it's good.
It all worked out though.
Yeah, and so we've had a week. I don't know if you know this, but free speech ended, or free speech was
Free
saved.
speech has ended. It ended, but then they wrote a letter to the CEO of Free Speech,
Yep.
demanding to see the manager of trans people. And now it's fixed. Now free speech is restored.
Excellent.
We are once again finally free from the tyranny of cancel culture.
Yes. Which I've probably seen about 100 different definitions of cancel culture this week. Ranging everything from cancel culture is when I get yelled at on Twitter, to cancel culture is pronouns, to cancel culture is, I don't know. I can't. Donald Trump also said cancel culture, I think, for the first time this week. And so now it is an official discourse word. It was one a little while back, but now this is the big
No,
one.
it's actually one, yeah.
Yeah, it has created, what's it called? The dirtbag left has had another freak out. And,
Well, has it?
oh
Can you
yeah.
update me? I'm so out of the news cycle of the dirtbag left. Intentionally, I might
Yeah,
add.
the Chapo people did a hour and a half long episode with Matt Taibbi, who is kind of like a grumpy person.
Mm-hmm.
A person who's grumpy about people not being able to say bad stuff on the internet. By the way, I gotta thank all these people following. Thank you for XS Pager, Delph Bjorn. That feels like one of yours. Kaiser Kaizen and Lucas Delay 89. Good times. Yeah, so they
How are you feeling though, in now that we have defeated cancel culture?
well,
In a letter.
it's weird. I mean, like my whole take was like I didn't think that cancel culture was real. Okay, so there's like two things. There's two ways to look at it, right? Because like the cancel culture that I think of is the one that came out of like where it actually came from, which was like the punk scene, which was this idea that like if somebody is like sketchy or like does sexual assault or something like that, one way to sort of deal with them and make them accountable for their actions that doesn't involve going to the police because punk is usually to more or less make them notably not welcome at any events anymore. Like they basically are just like not allowed to come to. It's ostracization from the punk community. But so often like with the Me Too movement and all this kind of like making people accountable for the things that they do, and like that seems like a good thing. I don't know if we've like the fact that we've had to have a reset now that everyone who we liked is evil. We've had like a reset because everybody has finally been exposed for all the shit that they just got away with for no reason. Second, though, the other side, and I don't even know if this would even be considered cancel culture, but this is, I think, what a lot of people are saying is cancel culture when it's not, is like when, hypothetically, somebody tweets a heart. And hypothetically, somebody tweets a heart and ends up being harassed for months over it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that would never happen, though.
Yeah.
Obviously. That's just an absurd example. This is purely theoretical.
Yeah. We're just dealing with ideas. So, like, yeah, I mean, like, in some ways, there's some bullshit, and in some ways, there's not. Because, like, but the thing is that there's an intentional conflation of the two so that people who, you know, don't like being yelled at on Twitter for refusing to, you know, have a more grown-up idea about, like, say, let's say one person who signed a thing saying, like, I don't know, accepting that trans people are real and that they should be validated for who they are, just as an example, and then getting yelled at for Twitter when they don't do that, that they think that they're somehow, like, having their, like, free speech stolen or something. I don't like it. I don't like my least favorite type of discourse is when two people are yelling at each other about a thing and both sides have a different definition of the same thing.
Oh yeah, it's the worst. Like talking past each other almost. Mm-hmm. Like they're like making the correct arguments for what they think they're talking about, but because they're not, it's just like everything just looks awful.
Because one side is saying accountability is a good thing, which I feel like nobody would be against. And then the other side is saying that hate mobs are bad, which I would also agree with.
Yeah. I feel like cancel culture has a very, as you say it, like I feel like it changes so much depending on who is saying it and why. Mm-hmm. And I think like it's not really helping at all.
And then you end up with like this letter that came out that sort of explains just how empty a signifier it is when you got everyone from Noam Chomsky to writers of Quillette signing this thing.
Yeah, I haven't read that letter, and I've seen like all sorts of people. Didn't Professor Brian Cox also sign it? And like, for some reason, like all sorts of people. J.K. Rowling, I think, also signed it.
Of course she did. Of course she did.
And it's like, what is it? Why?
Yeah.
Why?
When Brett Stevens
what is the function?
When Bedbug Stevens and Margaret Atwood are signing the same open letter, you know that something weird's going on.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people are like, I mean, yeah, because it becomes this like useless label, as you say, and everyone can just kind of interpret whatever they want from the label and then sign a letter against whatever they think is bad.
Yeah. I do have to say, very rich to see somebody like Brett Stevens sign this, the guy who tried to get a professor fired for calling him a bedbug on Twitter in a tweet that got zero attention.
Wow.
So, you know, it's that kind of stuff. This is the life we live in. This is the wonder of the internet. I've actually, like, this is like the first time where I'm like, you know what? Twitter actually has made the world a worse place. Like, it's not just on Twitter. Like, you could be not checked on a Twitter, and Twitter has made your life worse now.
Oh yeah. That's kind of that's like kind of like the Pandora's box, isn't it? That like everything bad in the world used to be contained, and now it's out there.
Mm-hmm. Which makes it really awkward when you watch like anything from like before 2015, when Nazis were so like sidelined that you could just like mock them, and now it's like, oh no, you can't make light of them anymore. Yeah,
that's one of the overtone window on like all sorts of discourse has really made things so much worse.
Yeah,
because not everything is everything is a statement of some sort, and Twitter is really facilitating that too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then
I should make a video about how Twitter shapes discourse.
Actually. Should. And then you can start by showing, like, look, a standard political issue, and then you cut into it, and it's like it's secretly cake.
Shut! I can't. It came with the cake.
Because that was also what Twitter was yesterday.
Just all day yesterday too. Like I was busy, like I wasn't on my phone like at all. I was like watching a movie, making salad yesterday, and then I go on Twitter like in the evening, and it's just all cake.
Yep.
It's just all cake. Suddenly, everything's cake.
It was the 30 to 50 feral hogs level of like hype for one day.
But like even more because everyone was talking about it. Like literally the entire timeline was just cake. I've never seen that happen before, and it's so cursed.
I got in on it early because I found the video early, and so I know I saw it very well, and it's like, oh yeah. I mean, it was funny because there was a lot of cakes that looked like things.
Cake do look like them. I wonder what set this off though, because like those kinds of videos have been around like for a while.
Yeah, I think one of them just went viral of like a really good one.
Yeah, and then suddenly everything was cake.
Yeah. So that was so cake and cancel culture is the week of discourse that happened.
So let's seize. Has what else has happened during the week? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know.
I feel so offline.
Yeah, I tried to stay off Twitter too this week. I mean, not really, but I'd like to think that I every week I try to be like, all right, I'm gonna use Twitter less this week, and then 1 a.m. I'm posting about cake.
Yeah. Every single Monday is like this. This is the week I delete Twitter from my phone, and then I sit over my PC and tweeting anyway.
Story of my life. I don't know, like the cancel culture thing spilled over into a bunch of different places because it was basically building on J.K. Rowling Gate. And the thing is, like, I think that like I had this suspicion that like Noam Chomsky signed it because he's a smart person who doesn't use the internet, and he doesn't know that like the context of this is like we should not cancel J.K. Rowling just because of all of the things that she says and publicly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that like
I feel like that's the case of like half the people who signed it.
Yeah. I did get a report, I don't know how true it is, that like the left-wing people who signed it weren't made aware of the right-wing people who were also signing it.
Yeah, like I think this is one of those things where like there's like one connecting person, but no one knew who the other people were signing it, which is a weird thing because that's not really how these things are usually go.
Yeah, and like this happens a lot. Like for example, like if you were to get a petition to support human rights and democracy in Venezuela, you'd be like, sure, I love human rights and democracy, but like out of context, you don't realize that that's like, if it's like signed by like Marco Rubio and like that guy from The Office, like, you know, this is them trying to support a right-wing coup of Venezuela.
That guy from The Office. I can't believe that guy from The Office, and like who did a movie once about quiet things that were quiet, has also become like a whole ass propaganda tool, like just full on funded by like the State Department.
Yeah.
Talking about how bad Venezuela is. Like what? What the fuck? There's a lot of like military money in Hollywood, by the way, and you should know that if you're watching Hollywood stuff, like in general. Oh, that's a good video topic too. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, there's Citations Needed is doing one about something like that when it has to do with demonizing Muslims and especially Palestinians and Iranians. So there's a really great book on it called Real Bad Arabs, which I think is also a documentary.
Nice.
So. Yeah, there's a lot of content there, but yeah, you know that like a lot of police procedurals will get use of police assets and won't have to pay for stuff if the police department can sign off on the scripts, and the military does the same thing with military hardware.
Yeah,
that's why the first Iron Man did not have any military assets in it.
They did, but they had to pay for it themselves. So like the Humvees and everything like that, they had to pay for it themselves.
Yeah,
so they could be critical of the military in that one.
Yeah, and then all of the other Marvel movies after that were inferior quality because they couldn't do it anymore. That's why Iron Man 1 is the only good Marvel movie. Fight me.
I mean, I agree. And the Thor movies, all of them.
Yeah, because I mean it's the space military. Or is even a military? They just fight monsters. I don't know.
Yeah, they just fight monsters in space.
Except for Thor 2, because I don't remember it. I have no memories of... I know I've seen it, but I don't remember it. We've had this conversation before.
Yeah, they hang out in London for a bit, I think.
Okay, so we do have questions. We are at the 20-minute mark, so this is about the time when we begin answering questions.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we've got like 80 people watching, we've got like... we should probably be more on top of these things, because last time we barely got 5 minutes into stream time before we got out of our 2 hours.
Yeah.
We are... okay. Tuesday night, I make more of a guarantee to answer every question. Mondays, there are no promises.
Monday's chaos. Monday's the purge.
Yeah.
No rules. Just right.
Okay, so the first question we got here is, last month, are you familiar with the YouTuber Bad Empanada?
A little bit.
He's actually a pretty good, like, history YouTube, like, leftist history YouTuber. He talks a lot about Latin America and knows a lot about Latin America stuff. He's the one who got put on the map by, like, destroying that Christopher Columbus video by what's that guy's name?
By knowing better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was...
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I all of my friends like Bad Empanada, and they won't stop talking about it. I haven't had the pleasure myself yet, but they seem pretty cool.
Yeah, it's some pretty good stuff. So last month, Bad Empanada made a video where he said paying for university by joining the U.S. military is morally equivalent to paying for university by doing armed robbery. Would you agree with that?
Depends on who you're robbing.
Yeah.
I would say.
Because typically armed robbery is good. If it's like a corporation in Grand Theft Auto. In video game.
In video game, in Minecraft.
This is maybe just me being an anarchist, but it's just like, who the fuck cares about a bank?
No, but like honestly though, like big corporations also like insure their money reserves, so like they don't lose anything. Yeah. Insurance companies lose money, and insurance companies are swine. They are leeches on society, and they don't deserve to exist. So anything like stealing insured money is like, I would even argue it's a moral good, because it robs insurance companies of their money.
Yeah. Now hurting people bad. Also, so I don't think
hurt people bad. Yes.
So joining the U.S. military is not as good as being an armed robber, but at least if you're robbing a bank. I think that there's like a couple things to it, and there's a couple things that make it complex. I mean, yeah, if you because like yeah, it doesn't talk about how much desperation the United States preys on people, like the level of like Americans might be the most propagandized human beings on the planet Earth. And how deep and how thorough that propagandization is. On top of that, so like a lot of people who join the U.S. military don't know what the fuck they're doing. On top of that, it depends upon how many degrees of separation you want to make before you're like complicit, because like you've been in the military, you know that like.
Yeah, I've been a cadet. I haven't been in the actual military.
Okay, but you know that like a good percentage of people who are in the military don't like have rifles and go harass people. Like,
yeah.
Does the laundry officer have like is complicit in the destruction of countries? I don't know.
Yeah, like the vast majority of people in the military don't do active combat duty, or aren't part of like aren't like part of the decision chain of command. So if you want to talk about like the people who are doing the bad thing or are ordering the bad thing, like 99% of people in the military don't have any part of that.
But they do support it. and like they do like
Yeah.
help the machine run. So it's not like they're completely clean, but I feel like the idea that is like it's too simple a simile, I guess, is to talk about.
Yeah.
That's the way I would frame that. But also,
That's a good take, I think.
yeah, because especially in the United States, because the United States has a extremely weird military culture that's difficult to parse out in and of itself.
Yeah. American military culture is wild. I still have to make a video about why people join the military. It's been on my radar for like a year.
You've got,
But thankfully, it's never gonna go out of fashion. So I can wait I can wait until the military is dissolved. At which point, that's the only time it's never gonna be relevant.
yeah. I mean, you've already collected a few strong video ideas. Just this like few minutes.
Listen, these streams are like good idea machines for videos for me to do.
It's true.
I have no creativity, Tristan. I have to rely on outside sources to figure out what I'm supposed to do.
So your favorite comments, the ones where they tell you what videos to make next?
Oh yeah, it's great. I can just add it to a big list on a big document called "Things I Will Never Do."
Yeah, I've got about 82. I got a bunch of videos that are like in some form of production because I have lots of videos that are like, like a Patreon stretch goal, for example. Patreon stretch goal, have that going for like every time I get a Patreon stretch goal, I have the video going. It doesn't have a due date, but I like work on it in the background. Or like videos that I have planned for certain dates, and then I usually have the next 6 months of videos going in some capacity. But then I have another pile of like 82 video ideas that's just like, at the moment it's 82 long anyway. I'm just like, these are things I want to do someday. If I ever like run out of things to work on.
Yeah, there's always too many ideas. There's never too few, really. But there's always you find something that's like, ooh, that's shooting to the top of the list. But like, is it morally equivalent though? I think I'll defer to your answer there, probably.
Yeah.
And it depends on perspective and who you rob and where in the military you are, I guess.
Like, it's rhetorically powerful, which I will give that credit for. But like, but yeah, like, because people should consider joining the military as like, if we can get more Americans to think, hey, join the military, I'm participating in something very destructive and dangerous and bad for the world so that I can get free university. But like, it's more complicated than that, but like, I understand the rhetorical position. And I imagine that under the gun, Bad Empanado would probably think the same thing, because he's he's very much into nuance and research. Okay,
nice. I'll have to look. I'll have to look at his videos.
Watch the Columbus one. It's the only one where I got in a little bit of trouble just because I shared it on Twitter.
Did you get in trouble?
I didn't get like in trouble, but like Will, the guy who runs Knowing Better, is sort of in my YouTube social circle, and this is a social circle that like goes and drinks at VidCon and stuff like that. So like I have been in social situations with him on several occasions, and there's like this growing clique of history YouTubers who hate me, and I think he has joined this.
Well, there's a clique of history YouTubers that don't actually care about history that much.
Yeah,
popular history for clicks and not accuracy.
I can think of 3 history YouTubers who actively don't like me.
I think if Knowing Better knows who I am, which is possible because he is part of Standard, he's part of the same network that I am. He probably doesn't like me either.
Oh.
I remember seeing a video that he made about like forgiving Japanese war crimes, which was actually pretty good. Yeah, the Columbus one was a bit yikes.
Hey, Geomaster2121, thank you for following. That's It's fun. It's fun. It's fun that I have a lot of my colleagues hate me. It's fun. And by that I mean...
But you make better colleagues. You make new colleagues that actually like you.
It's true.
Like me. I like you, Tristan.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm trying to remember, like, I know two, but I'm trying. There was a thing. One of them I had to throw out of my Discord server on the first day the Discord server was opened, because I think there's like one history YouTuber who's like a blatant alt-right guy. That the name escapes me right now, but
oh. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I feel like the history as a field, especially like history communication, attract either like far left people or far right people. There's if there are centrists, the centrists are the ones who go into academia.
Yeah, they're the ones who have jobs.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's fucking brilliant.
Oh, you also want a dangerous development. This is fun. Phoebe, the animal that is walking towards me right now, has figured out how to open the doors in my apartment.
Oh no. You're fucked now.
Yep.
Nothing can stop her now.
No. She will just... And also now she can jump on top of the cabinets. So there is no part of this apartment that she cannot get to if she was determined enough.
That's cute.
In the same vid, he also asserted that even military medics are complicit in the terrible things the U.S. Empire does, because ultimately they're only giving soldiers medical help so that they can go fight more unjust wars. Would you agree with that? I mean, Hippocratic Oath, yo. I think that that answer the previous answer stands. It's sure, but it's also more complicated than that.
Yeah, especially for medics.
Yep. Okay. What if we had the same level of commitment to neoliberalism in the 1930s? Would the U.S. have the collapsed Great Depression? Oh, it would have been way worse. There was like...
Oh, yeah.
The U.S. had, during the Great Depression, the U.S. had a big, like, collapse. The U.S. had neoliberalism stands for neoclassical liberalism, and classical liberalism was the economic ideology of the beginning of the Great Depression that caused the Great Depression, and it wasn't until 1933 or 30 no, it was the election of 1934 that FDR became president, and so like. The first few years of the Depression, like Herbert Hoover just was like, yeah, we're gonna do a just regular classical liberalism and make things worse, and they did get worse, and it was bad. So that's what I would say about like, and neoliberalism is just the idea of resurrecting those ideas and saying it was good actually. Oh my. Hello, Morpheus Laughing and Gian0169. Thank you for following. Man, busy stream today. We're having a real party in here.
Yeah, we like it. We stand.
We love to see it. Oh, here comes another one. Oh, thank you for following, Philosophy Tube. Welcome, this young upstart YouTube channel called Philosophy Tube. You guys should check it out sometime.
I hear good things. It's gonna go. Right now it's a bit small, but it's gonna take off one day. Yeah, in a few years.
I see this Philosophy Tube going places. It always just takes me back to when I remember first seeing ContraPoints, and I was like, this little channel is gonna go places. I bet that this person's going to like pass me in subscribers any day now.
And, I mean, it went places.
Yeah, oh man, just watching people take off is such a wonderful joy. I remember seeing an old cartoon video about why political correctness is good actually, from a little channel called Thought Slime that had like 100 subscribers, and then it was just like, I love this. It's so cool to see that stuff happen to good people. All right. A little while back, you said you didn't believe that the conservative judges on the Supreme Court really believe in the judicial philosophies they claim to believe in. They just rule in whatever way they think will most serve the aims of the right. Do you think that might not be the case for at least Neil Gorsuch, being how he's ruling recently? Now, you had a kind of statement on this.
Did I?
You were saying that or I think it was you that was trying to make the claim that that maybe these conservative judges are ruling against the mainstream because they want to show that they have some form of independence from the, it's kind of them trying to make a statement about how not serving the right they are.
Yeah, that was kind of. I think there's some credibility to that, because if the Supreme Court was seen to really just follow fully conservatively, then it would be entirely politicized, which is something that the Supreme Court doesn't want to be seen as, in terms of an image thing. It wants to think. It wants people to think that it is that it is independent and that it isn't beholden to party politics. I mean, it is, but they want to have the appearance of not being that.
Yep.
And I think that it at least has a little bit of a tiny bit of influence on some decisions, maybe on some votes.
Because if you talk to lawyers and legal scholars, the Supreme Court is treated like a basically reactionary wall, where it's just the Supreme Court of the last maybe 30 years has been this wall that basically blocks progressive change for the most part.
Yeah.
Next thing we got here is some Swedish. Hejsan från Sverige. I'm just going to send it to you in the thing because I have no idea what these words mean.
Yeah, please do. Oh, hello from Sweden. Hey, hejsan.
There you go.
Hoppas allt är bra.
See, sometimes I just forget that you just fluently speak a whole other ass language.
Yeah. This is my second language. This is not my native tongue.
I know the accent gives it away, but it's like when you know somebody. It's there's this time where I went to French school for a little while, and I spent a month in French immersion, and I spoke nothing but French with my teacher, who was Belgian, for a whole month. And then we had a party at the end where we no longer had to speak French anymore. And it dawned on me that she actually doesn't speak English. And I was like, I have this whole relationship with this person in this language that I don't speak, or that I don't really speak all that much. And it was just such a strange thing that was oh crap. Oh, I forgot that you, and I imagine it's more because I speak English, the emperor of languages, that it's different, because I imagine for you to be oh, you don't know Swedish, this language that's spoken by 12 million people.
Oh, that's generous. 12 million? That's generous. I mean, it's probably true. That's a really good guess, actually. But yeah, damn.
But
I as a Swede, I fully know that no one in the world fucking speaks Swedish, except for Swedes and some Finns and 3 Estonians.
Yeah, and also I would say that you might have gone through a similar experience when you were just learning English, but then I remembered that Scandinavians start learning English when they're 5, so it's doesn't really.
Yeah, I've learned. I've known English since I was 12, I think.
Yeah, I imagine
pretty fluently.
Yeah, I imagine that it doesn't take much brain effort to speak English for you anymore.
Not really. No, it's entirely natural.
Yeah, this is why Europeans have better school than us, because every European knows every European who doesn't live in the UK knows 5 languages by the time they're 12 or something.
And the thing is, I only know 2 languages. I know a little bit of Dutch and a little bit of German, but I only know 2 languages fluently, and a lot of people around me speak as you say, 3 or 4 or 5 fluently, which is wild.
Yeah.
But the default here is being bilingual. That's kind of the default. If you only speak Swedish and not in English, people will think that's what?
Oh man, you want to know how shitty it is here? In Canada, if you live in 8 of the 10 provinces, French is a language that they teach you a bare minimum of in like elementary school, and then they just drop it. And so everybody in most of the country knows like a handful of words of French and have forgotten everything else. While the other 2 provinces, one is fully bilingual, but the other one, Quebec, they are taught French from day one, but like they're heavily incentivized to learn English, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is not a fair exchange. We're supposed to be...
it's like French the default in Quebec.
Yeah. It's in many times also they do make a little bit of effort to, like, people like they make an effort to make sure that French would be the default language in Quebec. Like there was a time where it wasn't that way, but they were like kind of part of the French nationalism of the 50s and 60s was to like make sure that French stayed the language of business. They have this thing called the OQLF, which is the Office Québécois de la Langue Française, which is the Quebec office of the French language, where like you will literally get tickets for having like French receipts or like putting English on your seats, or like they notoriously crack down on like dumb stuff for not being French. Like I remember there was one a few years ago called Pastagate, where Italian restaurant had pasta on the menu and not pâte, and so they got ticketed by the OQLF for it.
Oh my god. What is it with the French language and doing that? Because if they did that in France too in like the 1800s,
it's because French people see belonging to an ethnicity as more based on language than bloodline.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, isn't that how they try to like argue that northern Africa was like actually part of like metropolitan France?
Yeah.
Because like they speak French, that means that they're French.
Yeah, and that's why Alsace-Lorraine region was a bunch of people who were ethnically German but spoke French, and so that's why they were both like, "This is ours. We're going to build a Maginot line through it to prove it."
Oh god, Alsace-Lorraine. And like 200 years of fighting over an area where they're just basically both. And now there's nothing.
It's almost like borders
border.
are bad.
It's almost like borders are really bad.
Okay, so the next question has to do with a book series by Harry Turtledove known as the World War books. Have you heard of these?
I have. I think we've talked about them.
Yes, the one where literal reptile lizards from space invade Earth during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Best, like, terrible book, greatest concept ever for a book. Okay, so you know the lizards in the World War books. It's a plot point that aside from during mating season, there is no difference in how males and females act or what roles they fulfill in society. Do you think it would be accurate to say a race that operates like that effectively has no gender?
I mean, kind of.
Pretty much. Like that's the...
Yeah.
Because gender is just all the social stuff we build up around sex. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Somoir L? Is that an L or a 1? Either way.
It's a 1.
Welcome.
So, some more 1. Some more? Some more.
Midsomor.
Schmore.
We're good at names. We're good at pronouncing things.
In my defense, this is not my native tongue.
Yes.
I'm allowed to mispronounce everything.
Mm-hmm. We were just, I was just out for beers for the first time ever, which was weird. And
Canada is opening up?
Ontario is very slowly, very cautiously opening up. Like, we had a bar, but also, like, London, the city I live in, has had a single case in the last week. Like, the bar is opening up to the sense that you can only drink outside with spaced out tables, and when you come in, you have to write down your name for contact tracing purposes and sanitize your hands and to go to the washroom, they actually like moved all of the indoor tables, so it just builds a corridor, so you walk directly to the bathroom and directly back, and there's a different path back, so you're not intersecting with the people who are going to it, and you have to hand sanitize every time you go in and out, and it's like, okay, if that's reopening. But you can sit at a picnic table with your mask off to have drinks with your friends.
That's nice.
Yes. I'll take it, honestly.
It's something.
So, but one of the people who I used to know here, and now we're kind of like trying to become friends with all of our old friends again, spent 10 years living in Finland, working for Nokia, the only corporation in Finland.
Yeah, the only one.
And yeah, we were just having to talk about funny Scandinavia stuff, like their strange relationship with the letter J.
Finland?
It wasn't. I think it was. We were talking. Oh no, we were talking. He was talking about Finland, but we were talking about kind of like the strange pronunciations of things that happen with the accents up there. And I remember J in Sweden came up, and then we also came to the conclusion that there are 3 types of Scandinavians, and I think you'll agree with this.
Okay.
There are 3 types of Scandinavians: elves, dwarves, and ogres. Elves are the tall and beautiful and like slender creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are dwarves, hairy creatures, hairy short creatures that come out of the woods. Mm-hmm. And then there are ogres, where when you meet them, you're like, oh, now I understand why you guys were Vikings. Like that's a Viking. That's a Viking.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely. Yeah. That's a very term.
That's something an elf would say.
What? Something an elf would say? I mean, it's true. Like, I mean, I'm definitely. I feel like I'm an elf in this scenario, because I'm not short and hairy from the woods, and I'm not big and brawny anymore.
The big brawny ones are always named Olaf.
Or like Bjorn or some shit like that.
It's true. Isn't Bjorn just the word bear?
Yeah.
So just people named Bear?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of names like that. Forest is also a name, like Skog. It's a very common common surname. Forest.
Fair enough. So that makes sense. It's a good elf name.
Yeah.
And plus also fits that, like, I think 2 out of 3 of those are Scandinavian mythology, so it all works.
Oh, for sure. A lot of mythology, a lot of European mythology is actually just Scandinavian mythology.
You guys are the
because the Roman Empire and Christians and everything just destroyed basically all other culture. So you're left with what they missed.
Okay, and also Phoebe's here.
Hey, Phoebe. Cat. Oh my god, that's so cuddly. Oh my god.
The host of the philosophy podcast I follow has been trying and failing to get a member of the sovereign nations on this show. I commented and told him he shouldn't be trying to platform fascists. He responded, "That's fair. I just like having people questions they don't want to be answered." What's a good response to that? I mean, if you want to go first, I think I can say some stuff about platforming. I've been thinking about it too much in the last few days.
I mean, I personally think that like platforming in general just kind of inherently like validates a view to some sort of baseline, because like there's a lot of opinions that are around, but they don't even meet like the baseline of social acceptability. But if we start talking about it, just the act of talking about it means that it meets the bare baseline of social acceptability, because we're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that can give like any sort of like ideology like an avenue to spread. So that's one negative. That's a part of like against platforming. But on the other hand, like, it's also possible for like an idea to be so socially unacceptable that it's fine to bring someone up and like discuss the ideas anyway. and it's just so to learn about it. Because on a certain level, we also need to like learn about the ideas that we work against, so we can do it more effectively. And we can't do that unless we talk to those people. So this is a bit of a balance scale, you know.
Yeah. I'd also say that there is something, and I think that we can look to 4chan for an example of what happened, which is just like the mere exposure effect, which is just that even if you are mocking them, keep in mind that people don't remember a lot of details. And if somebody can, and I think that a lot of times fascists and people who like ideologies that we are beyond the pale, they succeed because they show up at a debate, and even if they're wrong, they never admit that they're wrong, and they'll just speak with confidence. And like 50 years down the line, no one's going to remember, or a year later, even a week later, you won't remember the things being said, but you'll remember the way that they spoke, and you'll gravitate towards the one that's the most confident. And that happens quite often. And like this is the part that I think that a lot of liberals need to learn, is like ideas don't have to be right to spread.
In fact, many times it's actually better for an idea to be wrong, for it to spread.
Yeah.
Like, depends on the idea, obviously, but like, yeah, that's a good point. That like a lot of liberals think of politics like the in terms of like the most right one will win because it's most correct, completely misunderstanding why people have political ideologies in the first place, because it doesn't build itself in some sort of like empirical bestness contest.
And people are and people are more likely to gravitate towards ideas and ideologies that verify or validate their own standing in the world. Like if you are kind of like, if you're a little bit racist, if you are sexist or homophobic, and you hear one side say those things are bad, you should correct your behavior, another one saying no, you're fine just the way you are, one is going to be easier for you to sink into and than the other, even if one is the correct option. I'm learning this quite a bit. Where you can platform other like bad ideas, you want a great example of somebody who takes an idea and shows it for how bad it is without platforming them at all, or like without giving them like a platform to say other things, is the only proper place to put a bad idea, which is in an H-Bomber Guy video response essay.
I was just about to say, yeah.
If you make a reasonable response, or what's it called? Is it a something response?
Fuck. I think it's called a reasonable response.
Or a measured response, I think.
Yes, message response video. Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, because his whole thing is being absolutely bananas.
Big inspiration. The measured response videos are just for everything.
Yeah, like so much of the YouTube video essay has been shaped by measured responses.
Yeah.
Okay, in the anime I'm watching at the moment, oh boy, BNA, Brand New Animal, there's a plot about bird people being annoyed about the fact that humans recognize them as people means they have to get national citizenships and can't just fly over borders while migrating anymore. Is that something IRL nomadic people had to deal with when strong borders became super important in the 20th century? It all felt like writers were going for some sort of allegory. Yeah, it is. It's Roma people. It is Roma people to a T.
Yeah.
This is why Europeans are somehow just allowed to be shitty towards an entire ethnic group, because they didn't take a chunk of land and draw a line around it and put a little flag on it, so therefore they're not people or something.
Europe is like, there's a fun, and it's not fun at all. It's like really awful, but there's a meme that goes up on like Twitter occasionally where I see like Europeans when they watch like American racism, they go like, haha, points, we could never be that racism, and then Europeans regarding Roma people, and it's just a picture of Adolf Hitler.
Yeah,
because Like there's some deep eugenics still ongoing shit within Europe for like for travelers and for Romani people. Like it's it's bad, folks.
What is Mia doing with that knife?
I'm whittling a thing, like a little small thing. I shouldn't do that. I'm because I'm fiddling and I'm hurting my hands, but I shouldn't do that.
You're checking things to see if they're cakes.
Listen, you gotta double check. I don't trust anything now.
You
Am
know,
I a cake? Are you a cake?
if you cut me, do I not cake? Okay. You know how whenever someone on the right is anything other than a cishet white man, they'll cynically use identity politics to bolster their bad arguments. What's the best way to respond to that? I've seen a lot of people respond that way, asserting identity is irrelevant, which I feel like isn't ideal. There's a YouTube video called Tiffany Tumbles that's on this topic.
Someone who's on the right, other than cishet, nothing he's on the right bolster about on it. What's the best way to respond to that? I would try to kind of disconnect on some point, because I remember for some reason I was talking about Candace Owens talking about nationalism, and she's a black woman arguing that like the problem with Hitler wasn't nationalism, it was something else, which is big yikes. And just really high big defense of nationalism as a concept. The way I did that was like, and she uses like her black identity a lot to kind of talk about issues around race and issues around like around black oppression. I can't talk about that, but one, because I'm not comfortable doing it, and second, because I don't know anything about it. But I do know stuff about nationalism, so that's kind of what I focused on. Like I would like narrow the scope of the discussion to what was actually relevant, which isn't the same thing as like responding like or asserting that identity is irrelevant. It's just like actually focusing on the conversation itself, which usually isn't directly connected to identity politics, even if it might influence it. Like you can acknowledge and move on instead of dismissing. I think that's a more effective strategy, in my own experience.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Yeah, it's a weird one to discuss. I always thinking of Stamp from the Beginning. Stamp from the Beginning has a long discussion, which is a book by Ibram X. Kendi about racist ideas. Talking about like the book features, like he talks about everything in categories of three sort of intellectual streams: racist ideas, assimilationist ideas, and anti-racist ideas. And assimilationist ideas also being racist ideas. And he doesn't, like, he talks about white people who have anti-racist ideas. He also talks about black people who have racist ideas. And people can be wrong about these things. And also, there's a bunch of intersectionality stuff you have to throw in as well. Like, I don't really know Candace Owens all that well. I don't know much of her positions. I tend not to follow the radical right when they talk about stuff for the most part, because I don't like having subscribers, I guess. But, like, I bet that there's probably a class dynamic involved. Because there's a lot of,
for sure,
there's a lot of history in America. There's a lot of American history of affluent black people reproducing racist ideas to justify the kind of shitty position that a lot of other black people are in that they are not. So like a lot of times the assimilationist ideas of like, hey, if only you learn to be to batten down the hatches and be as personal responsibility as I am, then you wouldn't be oppressed anymore. Like, that shit has a long history.
Yeah.
Okay. Bullshit bad faith definitions by dumbasses aside, should we be considering if cancel culture actually has any bad effects? considering ContraPoints' video and Chomsky's counseling against it. And let's be honest, he signed the letter for very different reasons that everyone else in the letter. Should we be thinking about it in serious terms? Yeah, I think under the big umbrella of what cancel culture is, it depends. I feel like the main thing is that there's just an issue of category. There's an issue because there is something that would colloquially be called cancel culture that is objectively bad, like hate mobs and harassment brigades, even for the best of reasons, are not good ways to handle things. Like, for example, you know what? I shouldn't be talking about this, Mia. You're the one who has way more experience dealing with this bullshit than I do.
Can you repeat the question? I didn't really hear some details regarding cancel culture, ContraPoints, Chomsky letter.
Should we be thinking about cancellation in serious terms?
So I think there has been, as we kind of mentioned earlier on, there has been this, as you also mentioned now that you talked about it, there has been a sort of conflation of terms that for some reason now is all classified under cancel culture, which I don't think is fair. So there is they look very similar from an outside perspective, but the cause are usually very different between someone being canceled and someone being just harassed on the internet. Because both of these things have been on the internet for since there has been internet. But it's only in the last few years when we're talking about cancel culture. And I think personally that the reason this has happened is because people who are rightly called out for being called out and people want accountability for, who are rightly being canceled, are they want to claim that they are being harassed. Whereas people who do harassing want to claim that they only have valid criticisms. So there has been this overlap from both sides, from bad actors of both sides, who've muddied the waters so much that it's kind of hard to see what's what anymore. I personally don't think that cancel culture is a huge problem, because the people who are canceled, properly where people are where they have genuine concerns and want accountability for some things, that concern and those demands for accountability are usually pretty articulated, and if met, usually also end the cancel culture. There are tons of examples of people who fuck up, do an apology thing, and then everything moves on and everything's fine. But then we have people who maybe fuck up, but refuse to apologize and just double down. People will still be want to hold those people accountable, and then they haven't really been canceled anymore, and that's why there's the ongoing thing. I don't know. There's a weird visual aesthetic overlap between the two, and it's really hard to differentiate between them. I mean, we still have to worry about internet harassment. We just have to start using. I think we need to start using language that more accurately reflects what is happening in certain cases. I would say that when a hypothetical trans woman YouTuber tweeted a heart and got harassed for it, I wouldn't say that I got canceled. No one wanted me to be accountable for an actual crime or anything. That was just straight up harassment. But when someone has certain police officers in America who have done violent crimes and people want to hold them accountable, that's one thing. but no, I wouldn't call that cancel culture either. Or I wouldn't call, like, when people call out J.K. Rowling for actively spreading misinformation, I wouldn't say that's cancel culture. I would say that that's more like having a call out.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think there's also like some intentional conflating of terms in order to equate criticizing J.K. Rowling for having like weapons grade bad takes to like people who just harass each other online because they've gotten moral permission to just be horrible. And that needs to be distinguished, because it's being used by like New York Times op-ed writers to try and shield them having bad opinions.
Yeah.
Hi. Can you think of an example of a right-wing person who identifies as non-binary? I can think of several right-wingers who are gay or binary trans, but I don't think I've ever heard of a right-wing NB person. At least it's like the amount of NB people that I know has been growing exponentially in the last couple years as like discourse has been more formalized on it. But I don't know one. No.
I don't know anyone either.
Because both of I think that like gay people and like binary trans. First of all, gay people being allowed to be gay openly in conservative circles is new. Binary trans people being open in conservative circles has probably only become a thing because the right has become more, at least some segments have become more comfortable with the kind of trans medicalist interpretation of the trans experience.
Oh, 100%. That's excellently put.
And so, yeah, the right's always going to be slowly opening those things. So maybe someday, but like, not right now. No.
Yeah.
In a world where the media, both news and social, is publicly owned and everyone gets First Amendment rights, how do we deal with bad faith actors given that banning wouldn't be possible? You mean like now?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, in a world where media is publicly owned and everyone gets First Amendment rights, how do we deal with bad faith actors given that banning wouldn't be possible?
Yeah, like now.
Counter speech is the only thing that I could think in that certain situation. If everybody was allowed to post and there was no way to take them down, you'd have to do counter speech. Honestly, I'm like learning more and more every day about how you talk to people behind the scenes, and it turns out that Harry is the most effective person of talking people out of the radical right of all content creators, and that really just being funny and mocking them is apparently what works, and apparently that's the only. What I'm saying is H Bomber Guy is the only good YouTuber.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I second that.
So counter speech, like I used to work for CCLA, which was a civil liberties organization that was much more pro like limitless free speech than I was. I took much more of like a American view of free speech than I do, I guess I should say, because I believe in free speech too. I just believe that whenever you give somebody a platform to speak, you are making a statement about what kind of things you think are worth talking about, and that can run into some serious problems because not all speech is created equal, and that means that some speech cancels out other speech. Like, you want to talk about cancel culture? How come all the free speech warrior people aren't speaking up for all those left-wing university professors who keep getting fired or censured at work for having socialist ideas? Or complaining about protesting when fascists come to speak at your university, and not talking about all the left-wing authors and stuff who just don't get invited at all.
Yeah. I think you tweeted about this today, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Because we had an issue where I was in American Studies, and we had a speaker come to the university, and she did a speech that was sort of against banking. It was Wall Street, like a very typical, like a very like neoliberalism bad, like a very typical university speaker. But our program was run by some donors, and they did not like that, and so they shut down. They cut off the entire department, and now the department is like nothing.
Damn.
Then like 2 years later, or like 1 or 2 years later, anyway, Jordan Peterson came to speak on that campus because London's only about a couple hours away from Toronto, where Jordan Peterson lives. Mm-hmm. And not only was he put on campus, and the protest was actually forced to move off of campus, and so we had to have the pro-trans people, like Jordan Peterson protest off campus for free speech reasons. So I have like, you spend any time, like, the people who complain about free speech on university campuses don't seem to be people who have been on university campuses in a long time.
Oh, 100%. I'm reminded of something we talked about earlier. I'm reminded of an H-bomb video talking about Sargon of Akkad, free speech warrior, and his petition to ban anti-free speech courses and like SJW courses from universities, and it was a public letter to universities, in a petition. It's a fun video. It's a bit short one, but it's just. I just remember that being interesting. Also, I find it really interesting how for-profit universities in America kind of how that kind of framework allows this sort of discussion to even happen in the first place. Because I remember, I live in Sweden, like all university university is free, it's publicly funded. So we've had like controversial speakers of all sorts, and it hasn't like really tanked the any program or anything. It hasn't really caused a lot of controversy because there's no donors here who can defund anything. They don't have no power. And it sounds like a little bit feudal, like a little bit in America and in Canada, sort of, where donors can be like, I do not like this speaker, I shall destroy my program.
Yeah, it was that was bad. The fact that I went through this program in its last good year makes me sad. But yeah, it's not good, brah. Not good.
It's bad.
It's a bad take, friend. Free speech is a much more complicated thing. I'm reading a book right now called Against Free Speech, which is very interesting. I think I don't have a platform where I can really talk about this kind of stuff because I talk about history. Mm-hmm. But man, I really want to. I definitely feel something cooking in the back of my brain about this because there's a huge double standard at the very least. And that if you're going to have free speech where you allow Charles Murray, free speech by paying Charles Murray $30,000 to come to your university to speak, then let's have a different type of free speech where you pay me $30,000 to come speak.
I'm in favor of this. This reminds me of years ago. I remember seeing a debate between some Twitch streamer back in 2014 or some shit, talking to a leftist. But in the olden times, before BreadTube existed and before everything was awful. I remember this, and it was some super right wing or hardcore libertarian free speech warrior was also there, and they were talking about well, don't you obviously free speech, obviously we're all in favor of free speech here, and the leftist guy was no, because he was super authoritarian, super authoritarian left. Mm-hmm. And he was just no, I don't support free speech at all. I don't think that fascists have a right to speak. I don't think billionaires have a right to free speech. And the free speech the free speech crowd, the classical libertarian YouTube scene, had no kind of retort to that, because they're so used to using free speech as like a guarantor for their own shitty opinions. And even when the threat of that being taken away, they have no idea how to deal with it. So like, even if anyone would argue like changing free speech, because free speech is a very like nebulous concept that is very different in different countries. Like Swedish free speech is not the same as American free speech. I think American free speech is way freer than Swedish free speech. But people on the internet just think free speech just means one thing, and that's it, with no caveats, which is not how free speech works.
It's gonna be the states' rights of the 21st century.
No.
There's in the book I'm reading, there's a long story about how in America the term free speech is sort of a long in the chain of the right co-opting the language of the left in order to. It's said like people who say they believe in free speech, like they're too, like they're they're very selective about where they decide to make a stand about this, and it shows that they don't actually believe in free speech. It's just them using the sort of shorthand of something that's like sacred in American culture and sacred to liberals, and also was part of left-wing discourse to use it to further their ends. I mean, just ask Magnus Hirschfeld how much the right believe in free speech.
Yeah.
Or sorry, can you tell me some more about books that he's written? How many of his books survived?
Oh, I mean, original copies, not a ton, but like, basically all of his books survived in some form or another. But like originals and stuff like that it's pretty much gone.
What do those free speech warriors in Germany do to his books again?
I don't know. I feel like it's a stretch to call the Nazis free speech warriors.
But yet, you got Richard Spencer talking about free speech, so I wonder how
that's
far.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. I take it all back. And that's true. The Nazis did talk a lot about free speech. You're entirely right. You're 100% correct.
Yeah, it's
fuck.
It's super fun. Do you think Bush would have gotten a second term if Katrina happened 12 months earlier? Probably not. That's basically like what killed his presidency, not killing all of those brown people, because we live in hell.
We do live in hell.
Brett bug. Yeah, I'm in the bed bug part now. That's how. This is what happens now that we have 105 people watching this.
Damn. Hi everyone.
Hello. All those people who get upset every time like a show set in medieval Europe has a black character because it's supposedly unrealistic. I wonder if they'd be consistent if CBS said they were going to cast mixed race actors in Star Trek, because that would be the most realistic in a future with no borders and instantaneous travel.
Oh, they would still be upset.
Oh yeah.
They don't actually care about historical realism. They're just angry. They're just butthurt.
Yep, they just mad. Every time that happens and we detect high levels of mad, it's fucking pearls.
Also, there's a quick comment that regarding the free speech debate. I think Sweden denied entry to a pickup artist guy. Yeah, they denied. Sweden denied entry to Rouge V, who is like an actual
rapist.
Criminal. Yeah, like as you say, super bad guy, and because of all of the bad things that he does, Sweden didn't let him in, because he wouldn't. The things that he do is illegal here. Yeah. But it's not America for some reason.
We banned David Icke from our country because we have, in our Constitution, free speech doesn't extend to a person's right to advocate for the death of a group of people. And because of his thinly veiled anti-Semitic in the guise of lizards stuff, he's not allowed in the country.
RIP.
All right. In the 2003 Daredevil movie, they cast a black guy as the Kingpin and no one cared. How much do you want to bet that there'd be a massive chud outcry if he did that today? Oh, yeah. That definitely shows where culture's gone. For sure.
I feel like there's a lot of like more outrage culture now than it was in 2003. There were still like the weird comic book nerds. as a comic book nerd, I'm allowed to say that that would always be upset in any sort of like filmatization or like adaptation of any comic book.
Yeah, there was what's it called? I just saw today that Hanna-Barbera is saying that now canonically Velma is gay, and the Quartering is already mad about it.
Of course he is, but the Quartering is mad about everything.
Yeah.
That is his default state.
He has strong Scooby-Doo opinions.
He had strong She-Ra opinions too, which is interesting because She-Ra just didn't exist in the public zeitgeist like basically at all for the last like 20 years until Netflix made a show and then everyone got angry about it.
You know how all the advanced planets in Stargate... I haven't watched Stargate. You're the Stargate expert here.
I am, yes. Hello?
You know how all the advanced planets in Stargate are always populated by white-looking humans, even though the Goa'uld supposedly took humans from all over the world. If they were making the series today, do you think that that would be different? Like, do you think that there would be an Afro-futurist planet in Stargate if they were making it today?
Yeah, probably. I think that Stargate, like the show in production, was in a weird like mixed space between wanting to sort of be a like kind of Star Trek progressive sci-fi show, kind of, because they were still like the good guys, but at the same time they were also like very much like a kind of funded by the U.S. Air Force propaganda show, so they were like in a weird middle space between that. But they still like tried to like promote like progressive ideas and like teach the audience about like, hey, just because a culture is different doesn't mean that it's bad. Here are some like cultures from history. Here is how like we as white people have fucked them over in history, but using like a kind of sci-fi framework around it. But not in a weird allegory way. Like there's a full episode where the Stargate team, like they discover some Native Americans, and they make a treaty with them, and then they break that treaty so that they can get natural resources. And the heroes of the show is like, hey, that's fucked up. We have to fix that.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and it's like so they still have like a progressive messaging, and I think that that's sort of like progressive core of it that they at least wanted to try to do. I think that would kind of continue in a modern adaptation. I think, although I'm not sure, because Star Trek, they still make Star Trek shows, and the Star Trek shows are way less progressive now than they were in the day. They're still progressive, but they don't really have the like the quote of progressive racist looking into the camera and saying racism is bad vibe. Yeah, as the old Trek did.
They've moved to let's have a more diverse cast and have less like progressive messages in the show.
Yeah, which I think is to its detriment, honestly, because some of the old Star Trek shows where they look in the camera and say sexism bad.
Yep,
they're some of the best episodes.
It's true. I don't want to let this comment pass while we're going through here. If you cut open cancel culture, you'll be horrified to find that inside it's all cake. It's all cake.
Oh fuck! Oh no, not again.
Okay. The other week, one of the liberal podcasters I follow that we are the podcast that we do not know the name of that we are a response to. We're a response channel to it. Said that he gets frustrated when he argues with lefties because they insist imagining the best possible version of a Bernie administration where he gets everything done, and the worst possible version of a Biden administration where he gets nothing done. Do you think that's a fair thing to say about left-wing people?
Yeah. I mean, at least for hardcore Bernie bros, or whatever term you want to use for that. Like, I think there's a difference between like realistic leftist people who are like, Bernie is like the better option that we have. Biden is like the worst option of the two. Even though we would like something more, and the people who are like hardcore, like Bernie will do everything right, it's going to be amazing. But I feel like one of those people are more visual than the other one. You know, I feel like most people are a bit more reasoned, a bit more like a bit more reasonable regarding like the electorals of it all. Yeah. But there are definitely people who are just like Bernie Sanders stands who think he can do no wrong and will be an angel to sent upon the earth.
Yeah, the last few months have kind of ruined that.
Yeah.
But like the whole thing about like I would say that yeah, I think that's an unfair assessment, and on the sense of like, I think the people who support Bernie have like if he could even get like one or two of his policy agenda along, that would make people happy. The thing is that like Bernie, like when it was coming to like the actual Bernie debate, it was like Bernie wants to do good thing A, good thing B, and good thing C, and if we don't get all three things, like I don't think that anyone's like, man, so I'm expecting all three to happen, unless you're like literally 7 years old, But like when you with Joe Biden, it was like, I plan on doing bad thing 1, bad thing 2, and bad thing 3, and I will personally veto good thing A if it comes across my desk, and then being like then having his supporters be like, why won't you support him? Just because, like, what's it called? Why won't you just like support him? Like, obviously he can be pushed in a direction. Just because he said he would veto the thing that you want doesn't mean that he'll veto the thing that you want. Like, it's just like. Plus, yeah. I think that there's other things that like how come the liberals are so obsessed with like saying that Joe Biden's gonna have a competent presidency when he's having trouble with other things that are less hard than being president, like sentences. And also, like, he openly has pushed, like, one of the big things I think that leftists are talking about right now is that he's openly pushing, like, Obama back to normal nostalgia, when, like, leftists were the people who spent the 8 years of the Obama administration being like, this is bad, we can't just, like, go back to this.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would put all that.
Yeah. That's a good take.
Tell that liberal podcaster who probably makes 17 times more than I do. Is it obvious that I was less radical when I was subbed to most of the podcasts I listened to? Yes. What's it called? We are constantly replying to liberal podcast, atheist podcast, and law podcast.
We're a response stream sometimes. It happens.
Yep. Okay, the other day, someone on the Discord asked what would happen if we banned political parties, and I said we'd have unofficial political parties that'd be less accountable. Do you think I was right about that?
Yes.
Yeah, there'd be clicks.
I think so.
That always happens. Maybe they would be like less like like I would hope that they would be more based on issues and more fungible and open, but that's probably not true. It always ends up with like the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists because it's a more successful political strategy to pool resources and work together than it is to constantly have individuals competing against each other to pass things.
Yeah. That's why like almost every single democratic framework in the world has political parties.
Yep. All right, the alternate universe where the virus never happened and Trump got reelected, are people better off or worse than us? If they're worse off, does that mean the virus was worth it? Okay, so this is saying that choice. Trump reelection but no COVID, or our world where COVID and Trump theoretically not being elected, which is still...
Oh, I hate this choice, Tristan.
I know, it's bad.
I mean, no COVID would be nice. I hate to say it, but like, I don't know, like half a million people have died because of COVID so far, and it's probably going to go up by a significant amount. I feel like, I mean, as just demonstrably awful Donald Trump is as a president, I'm not sure he has killed 500,000 people directly. Maybe he has. Like, I don't know how many. Like, who has the higher death toll? I think it's COVID.
Yeah.
It's worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
I hate this choice, though. This is the worst choice. I don't want to have any of this.
Yeah. It's a reverse Sophie's choice. Can I have neither?
Please take them both.
Just wait. We live in the universe where we're going to get COVID and Trump will get reelected. So
yeah. Well, I don't know. Trump's figures have been like plummeting because of COVID. So
I know, but we also live in the worst universe. So
that's true. We did live in the Hillary Clinton is a guaranteed win universe, and like that turned out.
It's okay for Tony to wage his own international murders. Oh yeah, people are mad at the Iron Man take. Listen, Iron Man is the good guy in the movie Iron Man. If Iron Man was in the real world, yes, there'd be some serious issues.
Oh yes.
Privatizing.
I don't want Elon Musk flying around.
No. Did you find out that what's the one thing that one like kind of buried news story? Elon Musk is now richer than Warren Buffett, which
Damn.
cool and good. How would regional or global redistribution work under anarchism? Mostly to manage material inequalities due to geography or circumstances. There's a lot of ways that could happen. Anarchists, I think a lot of people seem to think that anarchists are against organizing society under any fashion. They're against states, but they're not against organization as a concept. So there'd be probably similar other options like planned economies, gift economies. These everybody's going to have stuff that they need to offload, that they make too much of, that they in replacement for things they need. I don't see why that's an issue. We'll just we'll make it work because that's what we want to do. We don't have to find a way to make it profitable, which means it'll be even easier. Is Mia in area history too? Your master's in history, right?
Yeah, I have a master's. Unfortunately, I had to drop out.
Okay.
So I'm not a real expert, but half a master's is still better than nothing.
How do we keep a 100% free public education system, but also avoid setting national narratives? How would different ethnic and religious groups manage to assert their identities in education? Do we just localize everything, but keep it public?
Yeah.
Works for me.
Yeah, just because something is publicly funded doesn't mean it has to be centralized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's also the thing about the anarchist stuff too. You can have something that's organized and not centralized. There's different types of organization structures. One of them is centralized, but there is distributed, there is branching. There's different ways that you could do things.
Yeah. And yeah.
America is the most propagandized nation on earth. China, Malaysia, Russia, North Korea, Venezuela. Am I a joke to you? I think America is more propagandized than those countries. Not gonna lie.
Hot take,
but knowing Americans leaving the United States, it's like leaving a cult.
Damn, really?
The world, they have had their entire world shaped in such a strange fashion. All right, how would leftists engage with protests that don't fit into their fold, e.g. Ukraine and Hong Kong? Ben Empanada has said that he doesn't really care about Hong Kong because it's mostly liberals, though he has acknowledged the leftist elements and despises China, and I thought it was a bad take.
I mean, I feel it's weird not caring about the Hong Kong protest because it's mostly liberal. Yeah, sure, but also China is an authoritarian state.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they have the communism logo strapped on top doesn't mean it's actually some sort of leftist role model. Sorry. By any metric, no one should think that China is good for leftism. No matter what your leftist inclination, even Maoists should be this isn't
Yikes.
even Maoist.
The Maoists should be these people are letting the sparrows keep living. What's wrong with them?
No, but I feel it's, I don't know. I feel it's I tire of the people who defend China as being China has a lot of interesting things going on in it. There's a lot of interesting parts of China's history in terms of leftism. Yes, but China today, as it is right now, is that really something that you want to defend? I don't.
Yeah. Someone said, "Okay, Tristan, you have to say I hope this birdie person really takes off, so it'll happen to me too." I do hope this Birdie person really takes off. You know that. Plus, your name is Birdie. You should be able to take off easily.
I don't know. You said that I would take off, what's that, like 8 months ago, 7 months ago?
I still think it'll happen. You just need the right video.
Yeah. One day.
You're very successful in your own niche. You've just done it in a very a different way than you've had a different path to success than other people have. But you're doing pretty well for yourself.
I'm hoping. I'm still hoping for the takeoff though.
Yeah.
I need the algorithm to boost me so I can be successful.
I know the feeling. I'm like right now, like in like this completely made up thing, just being like, what if I changed all of the languages on my video to English instead of Canadian English? Maybe that'll make things do better.
Oh, when I started making videos, the language was set on Swedish by default.
Yep.
And my videos were just not get recommended to anyone, and I changed to English, and it finally got recommended to like some people.
Mm-hmm. Then you were in the miracle on Twitch, and I don't know how much that changed things.
No, that changed a lot actually. It's not okay, maybe not a ton, because my big like upswing from absolute nobody to someone who can do it professionally happened like a week before the stream, but it definitely helped.
That's good. We're all thankful for that.
Again, Harris is the only good YouTuber.
The only good YouTuber, yeah. Do you think insult? Yeah, this stream would not be happening if it wasn't for him. I just realized.
Yeah.
I found out that Mia Mulder was a person that existed because of that stream.
Oh, cool. Neat.
Do you think insults and ribbing serve a useful function in human socializing? The other day, Lumi said they believe in an ideal world where people never insult each other. That'd be nice. That's also a very Lumi thing to say. Lumi is the most chill, comfy streamer on twitch.gov. Is in a perfect world.
Ribbing is different from like malicious insults.
Yeah, because like there is a form of teasing that is like kind of building relationships with each other. And in many ways, sometimes teasing people on certain faults is like, if it's done in a lighthearted way, is a way of saying, like, I know that you're not perfect, but I like you anyway, type thing.
Yeah.
So that's mine.
I don't know. I don't think it'll go away, but I think it's part of like human socialization, like a little bit. But it would be nice if we could like transition like a little bit away from it.
Mm-hmm.
From like insults in general, and like I don't know, I'm guilty of this too. I call people ass wipes on Twitter all the time. So
this is true. I made fun of JJ McCullough last weekend, and it was great. So I don't regret it. So I'm definitely bad, and I denounce and recuse myself already for it. Why would your history comrades hate you? That's a good question, Christos Nicolau, and it's because I said horrible things like Howard Zinn is good and dared to insert politics into history.
Wait, politics and history? You can't do that. The past is completely apolitical.
Yeah.
It has no bearing on the world as it is today.
Mm-hmm. But I don't want to name names because I don't want to get myself in more trouble, and plus it's not nice to do that. And I want
if someone starts beef with me, I'll name names just on me, not on behalf of Tristan, but like for me.
What's it called? I want to be more like Lumi and not being mean to people.
Yeah.
All right. Ooh, okay. Kind of random, but this has been on my mind recently. If the places in Gulliver's Travels were real, would the Europeans still try to colonize the land of the giants? I don't think I've read Gulliver's Travels.
No, me neither. I have no idea. I don't know the context. I'm sorry. I've read the one where big guy is strapped down by a bunch of small people.
Yeah, that's all I know, too.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I remember knowing better claiming that Hello Kitty is some sinister attempt to make the world forget about Japanese war crimes during World War II. I hope that's true, because that's hilarious.
I hope that's true too.
Okay, let's see. Cat door opener. Oh no. Everyone's taking Phoebe's side on the door opening thing.
Yes! She's an independent woman.
She's 10 years old. She's middle-aged by now.
Yeah, she could open her own doors.
Yeah. Isn't knowing better a veteran? Doesn't he comment on U.S. human rights violations? I don't know if he comments on human rights violations, because I know when I meet veterans in real life, my first instinct isn't to ask, hey, what do you think about all those human rights violations you did?
Oh, God.
Because that would not get me reinvited to parties.
I'm looking forward to the day that like VidCon happens again, and I can go there, so I can finally like start a beef with people.
Yeah.
Like in person.
You can, what's it called? I'll invite you out to, there's a Mongolian grill place that like, one night of VidCon every year, we get like 20 educational YouTubers to all go out and get food.
Hell yeah, sounds great.
And
I'll
Mongolian,
go there and make enemies.
yeah, it's great. Supposedly achieve libertarian communism, reverse climate change, and build an ecotopia. Build a fully automated high-tech economy and end all identity politics, post-racial, post-gender, post-national world confederation. Would people just become upper-middle-class liberals?
I don't think so.
I don't know. We would have, like, the way that we see the world would be so different back then.
Yeah. It would have to change the entire political landscape into something completely new, which would be interesting.
You'd be surprised by how many small ways, like the way that our culture functions, even ours, without even controlling it, have to do with capitalism's like impact on just like our senses of good and bad and desirable and undesirable and everything.
Yeah.
The culture of such a world would be completely unrecognizable to us, and we would all be heathen barbarians in such a world.
Imagine going into that world and being like, "Oh, I feel bad because I didn't work enough today," and everyone would be like, "What the fuck?
We'd all be like that guy.
What's wrong with you?"
We'd all be like that guy in that one Star Trek episode who got like unfrozen, and then was like, "Hey, I'm gonna make capitalism happen again."
Where are my stocks? I need to call my bank. Yeah. I have so much money.
It's such a.
What do you mean money doesn't exist anymore? I need to go. Someone call my stock manager.
That was such a good episode.
It was a great episode.
God,
holy shit! What a good episode.
Did I tell you that one of the greatest things happened, which is that so Kelly and I are watching Deep Space Nine, and we're coming near the end. But then she wrote down this list and came to me one day with it, and she's like, "Is this roughly the TV show timeline of Star Trek?" And she had like a list of like all of like the Star Treks, how they happen in chronological order of the actual timeline. And I was like, "Yep." And she's like, "Can we watch this?" And I'm like, "Oh yes." It does mean we have to start with we have to join the Faith of the Heart Club. We have to go get faith to believe that we can do anything. And strength of the soul. No one's gonna bend or break me.
All right. Oh God, I was like, oh, I forgot about that one.
Spend a few months with Captain Scott Bakula.
Oh my God. I was like, you were doing the lyrics, and I was like, all of this sounds so familiar. Why does it sound so familiar? It's a good, like the later seasons are good though, of Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah, once they got over Space 9/11, it was getting pretty good.
Space 9/11. God, what a show! I can't believe they did that.
Yeah. Ollie suggests that FDR's middle name is Danger. Okay.
It's true.
Yep, little known facts, not Delano. Man. Oh man, it looks like, I don't know if Ollie's still here, but he hung out for a while.
Yeah. Also asked if we want to come and see, if we still want to come and see Dracula later the year.
If I can go to Europe, which I don't know if they'll let me.
I'd love to go if I'm allowed to visit the UK, because Sweden is like a bit more isolated than the rest of Europe because we haven't done lockdown.
Yeah, I can't. I am afraid of making trips. Like I'm probably not gonna be able to go to America for Christmas this year. Like I don't know what's gonna happen.
I mean, if we can go to Dracula, we'd love to come. But
yes, it'll hurt me a lot if I can't see it. Okay, let's see. Where am I next? remember when Thought Science PC culture was in my vid feed. Yeah, I remember that too. Okay. Just like digging through lots of non-questions. Okay. Would detective and forensic shows stay relevant in a post-police, post-prison world? Like imagining a show where a detective or social worker track down criminals only to redeem them and have them reconcile with their victims. That'd be a sweet show. Yeah.
That would be a cool show, yeah.
We're like not like what's it called? If we get rid of the police, it's not like we're gonna not have people who find murderers. Like I feel like that's still gonna be part of the thing.
There's a difference between like beat cops and investigators. I think we're always going to have a need for investigators, which I think a lot of people who oppose the abolish police stance don't really understand, because they think they're like, what, we're just going to let people murder and never going to investigate it? Like, no. Like, there's always going to be like detectives and PIs and investigators. We just don't want like beat cops.
Yeah.
It's really weird that like people do beat cop things and then become detectives, even though they're entirely different skill sets.
Mm-hmm. Really, what they should do is let Mia Mulder become a detective.
Please, I actually, when I was like younger, I whole ass considered starting a detective agency. Like I actually considered doing
that. That is adorable.
And like I have no education in like criminology or anything. I have no experience. It would just be like me setting up a website like around town and being like, is your spouse cheating on you? Find out using Mia Mulder's detective agency. Aww. And I just like stay with the camera outside someone's house and just stalk them for a bit.
Private Eye.
Yeah.
I think that's that'd be you'd be the new Jessica Jones.
Yeah, like whole ass inspired by Jessica Jones. I strongly consider doing that.
See, I was thinking this is like a thing that you wanted to do when you were like 8, and I was like, oh.
No. As an adult, okay. I had this idea that I was like, I'm gonna do this. This is gonna be my post-history education job.
Nice.
What?
You have to have a car though.
I think the rationale I had for it was that like maybe I could do it for a bit, and if I. Because people pay a lot for it to happen, right? And I wouldn't have to come up with the results. Like I could just be like, I couldn't find any evidence that he was cheating, but maybe he's super good at hiding it, and I still get paid.
With those jobs, you usually end up working a lot for insurance companies.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
What would be the ideal model for sex work decriminalization be like? Legalized and unionized. Don't the Dutch do that?
Kind of, but something that actually Philosophy Tube mentioned in their video on sex work is that we kind of need to also make our way with borders, because like a big driving part of sex work and like trafficking comes from people who want to leave like countries where they're not doing well. They want to go to better places. They want to go to rich countries. And what they do is a big driving part here is that like they contact a smuggler, but they can't afford the smuggler because they charge like 100 times what they actually need. So the smuggler will like, because the smuggler is usually part of like a crime ring, and the crime ring will like be like, okay, we'll take you to a rich country, but when you get there, you're gonna do sex work for a bit until you pay off the debt, and that is how a lot of like sex work trafficking happens. But if we didn't have borders, or if like travel was way easier to do, what's it called? That would be less of a problem, because people could travel easier. People wouldn't need to subject themselves to smugglers in order to travel to places where they feel like they can have their highest potential, so to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, borders have to be done. Yeah, it's criminalization. Sex work. Yeah, sex work and borders and states and capitalism are all going to be like, capitalism is a way of taking basically every industry and turning it into the worst version of itself.
Yeah.
Maybe let's not do that. Let's not do a capitalism.
Let's not do a capitalism, please.
But yeah, in lieu of that, if we can't get rid of capitalism, then I would say highly regulated, um, and unionized.
Yeah.
Sex workers need to be unionized so bad.
You got a super chat, by the way.
Oh, it did?
You did.
Bananas. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Matt Lipton. Do you think that North American politics would be different if the continent was a bunch of different nations instead of 3 large ones? Would it be more similar to the dynamics of EU politics?
Probably.
Yeah.
There's like an alternate universe where all of the like different migration waves from Europe result in like different nation states in America instead of just contributing to one big one, which is America. It's like Minnesota would probably like be filled with Scandinavians.
They'd be Norwegian, yeah.
Oh God.
Norway too.
Norway too, still cold.
It's true, though not as cold. All right, what's a Swerf's reasoning for saying sex work is bad? Is it that it's solely a male gratification, or that it would allegedly never be a rational choice for a woman? Also, that's a counterpoint to those. What's a counterpoint to those arguments? So my mom is a bit of a Swerf, and so I have had these arguments before. Because my mom's a second waver.
Yeah. Basically, all of Sweden is Swerf.
Yeah. What I would say, one thing I would say is that to a lot of them, they would say that the idea that there are women who are in sex work who are happy with what they're doing is a myth. They don't believe that that's real. Or if it is, it's a small enough minority to not be worth considering. Which I would push back against, especially in the age of the internet. But because most of these arguments come from people who lived in the 70s and didn't really know any of these people. I would just make the argument as maybe you should listen to sex workers before you make all these judgments about them and tell them what they want or what they don't want.
Yeah, maybe. Like it's almost like as if people actually questioned FOSTA and SESTA before they actually got signed into law, and turns out that they were right, questioning it. I whole ass remember when Amnesty International decided to take the stance of decriminalizing sex work is like the best to reduce just human suffering, and it's just best to like reduce slavery in the world, which is like a big thing that Amnesty International cares about. And I just remember the Swedish branch, like Swedish feminism, just whole ass imploding on itself because it's like they're doing the errands of pimps. Mm-hmm. And the same kind of arguments happening when more people argued against FOSTA and SESTA, saying that like if you're not pro FOSTA and SESTA, you are pro pimp. And then it turns out that actually FOSTA and SESTA were actually pretty pro pimp. Turns out it's almost like sex workers actually know more about their industry than other people do.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like it seems like sex work always seems to be a thing where I'm sure you're a trans woman, so you know this exact same story. It's another class of people who are talked about and not talked to.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you EF and Falcon FN. Thank you for following. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of there's so many situations where we have such a bad public policy towards something, and it always comes down to the fact that like nobody thinks, hey, maybe we should talk to the people who are involved with said thing before we do something about it. Like indigenous policy that's done without talking to indigenous people, or sex work policy, and also sex work policy like in the way that our government works is that because sex is so stigmatized by Christianity, it's like it's hard to make policy about because can you imagine a politician trying to run on like I'm making sex work safe my top priority? And,
yeah,
like
they would kind of be ostracized just because of the subject matter.
Mm-hmm. And that that's like one of the reasons why, like, it's one of the, yeah, it's not good. I really wish that, yeah, I really wish that we listened to people more.
Yeah, same.
I say while talking to a bunch of people. Um, all right. I've seen people assert that the monotheistic religions being based on universal truths is inherently conservative. I mean, yeah, a little bit. I get that it would be interpreted this way, but could we also say that universalism equates everyone, especially if we think that Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Mahavira, Zoroaster were all great reformers and revolutionaries, just in an idealist sense? Hell yeah, yeah. What's it called? All of liberation theology is based on that. What's it called? Christian anarchism is based on that. I would even say too that, like, during like a lot of debates about race, like I don't know if Ollie's still in the chat, but Ollie just recently made on Philosophy Tube. There's a recent video that's really really good about talking about race and the development of evolution, and there's a whole thing about like how there was a time where the rational atheists were the ones who were trying to make the claim that that people of color were different species, while it was like the Christians who were the ones insinuating like, or insisting on like, no, we all came from the Garden of Eden. We're all one species. Not that helped a ton, but it was like, it's an example. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on this?
No, I think you summed it up pretty perfectly, actually.
Yeah, Christian. Like the thing about like religion is that they are, I wouldn't say empty signifiers, but they're definitely very wide signifiers that you can throw a whole lot of ideology into, and so you can develop a lot of ideas in there, good and bad.
Yeah. Sorry, this conversation just making me think of Crusader Kings 3.
Oh, so soon. It's like a month away, right? A month and a half away?
No, it's not that far. I wanna make my own schism.
Yeah. Okay, I hate myself, and I hate how much time that I don't have. But part of me wanted to make a YouTube video where I played Crusader Kings 3, and the way that I did it is that every episode was like a fictional biography of the leader for like their lifetime and like the things they did and like what they accomplished, and like treated like it's a historical documentary. And then when they die, it ends, and then you go to the next episode, which is the life of another person. And then I'm like, I would love to make the video that's about the person who lived for 12 days before they were like assassinated or something.
They got crowned like emperor and immediately got thrown out a window.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that happened.
I like this.
It was a cool idea. I just was like, I don't have enough time to do this. Tristan, why are you giving yourself more work?
Yeah, that's something that you can do. Like once you're like 3 weeks ahead in work, we have like an assistant and everything. Like you can just spend like some time setting up another YouTube channel to just play Crusader Kings for a bit.
Yeah. What I might do is I might do it, but like on a slow burn. But right now I've got other videos that I want to make on a slow burn, so I don't know. It'll probably never happen. It's one of those things that I'll like want to do and never do. I just was thinking about how good it would be to get on the Crusader Kings 3 track when it's hot, because like, yeah, there's a lot of value in getting in that video game. Like there's a successful YouTube strategy of find a video game that you know is going to be successful and get making content about it all the time as soon as it comes out, and nothing but that content.
Oh yeah, like the second the Matrix 4 movie is going to come out, that's going to be my entire channel for like 4 months.
Makes sense. The only logical
on the same principle.
Good stuff. Okay, let's see. Where was I? People like want the South to break away from the U.S. and become like a Christian theocracy. Is that a form of fascism? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want religion to dictate everyone's lives, that is a form of fascism. Yes.
Yes. It's really fucked up to me that a lot of people are like really ready to give up on the American South, as if that's not like, a lot of people live there.
Yeah.
Most of them aren't fascists. Turns out, like a lot of them are actually victims of fascism, and it's just weird to me that like some people talk about it as if it's like a lost cause.
Yeah,
But it's not.
especially like the lots of black people who live in the South.
Yeah.
How similar are the different Scandinavian languages? Can you understand Icelandic or Danish?
Kind of. They're pretty similar. They all have the same root. Uh, Danish, Norwegian, and Icelandic are more similar to each other than Swedish is, and that's because there's like there's like Norse, like Old Norse as a root language, and then it kind of splits into like West Norse and East Norse. And Swedish is East Norse, and all the other ones are West Norse. And the reason it's kind of split is because like Swedish Vikings primarily, I mean, all the Vikings went everywhere really, but like Swedish Vikings primarily went into like Russia and eastwards, and like the Norwegians and Danish, they went to England and France. And so like the language influences that, raiders come back with and that are kind of influence are also like pretty different. But I can still like understand Icelandic like pretty well. But I have to kind of like shift my brain a little bit and kind of think. I have to think in like old timey Swedish, like, so like it would be as if it would be as if you could understand French by thinking in Shakespearean English, kind of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of how that works. But I can still understand it pretty well. It's not great. Like I can't speak it to save my life. But if someone's speaking Danish, I can kind of like piece together what they're talking about. Norwegian is like way more similar. I can basically understand Norwegian pretty well.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thank you for the letter Thorn, by the way. Okay.
Oh yeah, good letter.
Okay, one last question. Since we did a Norway, or we did a Scandinavia question, I'll do a Canada question to finish off, so it's fair,
Yeah.
equally balanced. Why does Canada produce so many left-wing YouTubers? Mexi, Blackgoat666, Christo Avalis, The Rational National, Step Back History, Jose, Sarah Zed, Dan Olsen, The Serfs. There's enough of you to build an indigenous Soviet confederation of sorry about that. Well, none of us are indigenous, but I'll take it. I think the reason why is just because Canada, and this is probably why there's so many like popular. I think there's like one of the reasons is because Canadians are, by and large, slightly more affluent than Americans, so we're much more likely to grow up being able to afford saying like, hey, like having a camera, like being able to buy a camera or being able to do YouTube as your job. Second is that our politics are typically more left-wing than America, and we have more of like a class-conscious history of things, not much more. But even though we have that more left-wing politics, we are close. We largely speak English. We are close to the American border, so we are very influenced by American media. So we are very savvy in American media culture and American culture in general, and we speak typically without much of an accent. So we're not considered foreign. And that's why I think that those combination of factors is why Canada has so many left-wing YouTubers. I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because like, yeah, we are kind of like a small bit of the United, like we have a very similar culture, but just a slightly more left-wing politics and slightly more money.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, guys, gals, non-binary pals, this has been a really great stream. We have covered some cool topics, and we got, dabs all around. How will we go, everybody who's on Twitch, we're going to go and show Rocketansky some love. Because we all stand a Rocketansky.
I'm doing a charity stream for Trans Lifeline too, so that's cool.
Where's that? When? Tell them to go.
It's right now. It's happening right now.
Is on Rocketansky?
Yeah.
All right, do it. Go. Okay. And for everybody on
Okay.
YouTube,